In 1938, John W. Campbell Jr. wrote a short novella called Who Goes There?, a chilling tale about a group of scientists in Antarctica who discover a dangerous shape-shifting alien. Now I've read it and it's a great story. Seriously, you should pick up a copy. So it's no wonder that it's been adapted into a movie on 3 different occasions. First in 1951 as The Thing from Another World, then in 1982 as John Carpenter's The Thing, and then most recently a movie in 2011, also titled The Thing. Now the first 2 movies were classics, but the third movie was such a piece of... Alright, just relax. So, how about I make a review of this? Let's start off with The Thing from Another World. The movie follows a group of US Air Force officers who are sent to evaluate an incredible find made by an Arctic research base, a crashed flying saucer buried under the polar ice. Though they accidentally destroy the spacecraft in their attempts to extract it from the ice, they do manage to recover the frozen body of the alien pilot. They excavate the creature in a block of ice and bring it back to the base. However, the ice block soon melts and the creature escapes to terrorize the crew. The movie was directed by Christian Nyby, but come on, we all know it was really directed by the producer Howard Hawks, because the movie features a lot of the typical hallmarks of a Hawks movie, such as his tendency to cast strong, independent female characters, his wry sense of humour, and his very snappy, clever dialogue. Pretty much every other critic that has reviewed this has praised the film's dialogue. And yeah, I'm not going to be an exception. Most other movies of the time tended to have a more theatrical, stand and deliver approach to dialogue, where everybody sounds like they are giving a grand speech. But Howard Hawks, however, opted for a more naturalistic approach to the dialogue. He wanted his characters to sound and talk like people in real life. They'll interrupt each other, sometimes cutting each other off mid-sentence, and they'll speak over one another. You'll have a couple of people talking in the foreground, but then in the background, there'll be another couple of people having a completely different conversation. It really does add a sense of realism to the film. The movie also has a subtle sense of humour as well, which is unsurprising seeing as Hawks was a filmmaker who was typically known for his work on comedies. You've got a lot of scenes where the characters are just sitting back and bullshitting, spinning yarns with each other, my favourite being when Captain Hendry and Nikki play a drinking game with each other. Not only are these scenes really funny, but they also help you to build an emotional connection with the characters, which in turn makes the scares later on more effective. One of my favourite funny moments comes when the characters find out that the alien is made of vegetable matter of all things, because they react the way that you would expect to if you found out something so absurd. Someone even calls it a super carrot. It's hilarious. That brings me to the alien, and yes, it is made of vegetable, but that actually makes it much more threatening than you'd think. You can't just shoot it, because that'd have as much effect as drilling a hole in a tree. It doesn't have any internal organs you can damage, and it will just regenerate any lost limbs. The alien feeds on human blood, and it's using the blood from the people it kills to grow an alien army, which if it isn't stopped, it will use to take over the Earth. The monster is superhumanly strong, but much more frightening is the fact that instead of just attacking the crew outright, the creature hides in the shadows, biding its time, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. The effect they use to create the monster though, unfortunately isn't that convincing. It isn't even a guy in a suit, it's just a guy. All the alien in the film is just cowboy actor James Arness wearing what looks like a slightly modified Frankenstein's monster mask. But Howard Hawks was a smart guy, and he knew the monster wouldn't hold up to close scrutiny, so instead he chose to hide the monster as much as possible, only giving the audience fleeting glimpses of it, more often than not covered in shadow or hidden in extreme wide shots. And this actually ends up making the movie much scarier. You see, fear just as often comes from what you don't see than what you do. It builds suspense because you never know just where the monster is and when it could leap out and attack. And because you never really get a good look at the monster, your imagination fills in the gaps. And nothing knows how to scare you more than your own mind. Future movies such as Jaws, Alien, Predator, and even Cloverfield would go on to employ this technique. I can't help but see the influence that the Cold War must have had on this film. The film's release was around the same time as the Korean War after all, and so the influence becomes really apparent when you've got things like the American military trying to save the world from this other force who is single-minded and devoid of morality and hell-bent on global domination, and the men who try to reason with the enemy instead of fight are portrayed as being fools. In fact, the movie has a lot of tension between the military airmen who want to kill the creature and the base's scientists who want to preserve the creature to learn from it. And even though the movie does side with the airmen, I do like how the movie doesn't portray the scientists as being mad, but rather just naive and idealistic. After all, they found the scientific discovery of a lifetime, and so of course they're horrified when these other blokes just want to burn it. The only real complaint I have about the film is that it has about 2/5 of fuck all to do with the original novella. You'll be hard pressed to come across a less faithful adaptation of a book. The book takes place in the South Pole, but the movie takes place in the North Pole. The book is about a shape-shifting alien, but the movie is about an alien made of vegetable. None of the characters from the book are in the movie. They were all just made up for the film. Even the title is different. The book is called Who Goes There, but the movie is called The Thing from Another World. It really only adapts the broadest elements from the novella, that being that scientists discover a spaceship buried in the ice, accidentally destroy the ship when recovering the alien pilot's body, and then when the alien escapes, they eventually kill it with electricity. Everything else though they change. It really makes me wonder why they bothered to do an adaptation of a book at all, and not just make an entirely original movie. But regardless, this movie is a classic. It's an age-old science fiction thriller that has inspired countless other people in the film industry, and it ends with one of the most chilling lines in cinema history.
Tell the world. Tell this to everybody wherever they are. Watch the skies, everywhere. Keep looking. Keep watching the skies.
Well, tune in next week, we're looking at John Carpenter's The Thing.